about valuable. I'm just going to torture myself for a few hours this evening. Apparently the plan tonight is to smoke out a building and lock me in the room and let me escape through the wall. Yeah. Good times. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and
Just wanted to say hello. It's Maritza. I finally was able to get through on WebEx. There was some little technical difficulties, but just wanted to let you know that I'm with you.
Thank you, Maritza. Go ahead, Josh.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and display the report. I can kind of walk you through it, and then we can have a bit of a conversation about, yeah, what it means and things to consider. So let me go ahead. Oh, if somebody could make me a presenter so that I can share my screen. Oh, looks like it's been done. There we go. Awesome. Okay. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, first off, this is the current deviation in demographics. If we look here, the highest percentage of the Black voting age population is currently in District 4 with 35.12%. There are currently no minority majority districts in the city. The closest is 4 there. So, long story short, it is entirely possible, in fact, it's not even particularly difficult, to make an African-American majority district within the city of Syracuse. And I showed a couple of ways that that might be done. These are certainly not the only ways that this can be done. There are a great number of combinations of census blocks that could make up a African-American majority district. These are 2, and I'll kind of walk you through the thinking of why I sort of did these 2 to demonstrate this. So this was the first one, and if we just see here the really dark, rich, sort of pink color there, that is the highest geographically concentrated voting age Black population in the city of Syracuse. No real surprise there to anybody who's familiar with the city, which is all of you, certainly. And so this particular district, I believe, has a 54.21% majority for the Black population there. The advantages to this bringing, so as you can see here, there's a lot of light pink down at the bottom. It's entirely possible to create a more, you know, a higher percentage Black population district, and I showed that in the next sort of map. My thinking here on bringing this area, the southern portion of District 4 there, the southern portion of the city, west of 81, in this was that in shifting it up, being able to actually loop around it then, around the periphery of that becomes more difficult. And also, as we saw in the deviation in demographics report, there's also up in this area here, there's a sort of Hispanic concentration that if we shift this up, that would split. In and of itself, I don't think that drawing it that way to potentially split that population is that big of a deal. It's going to come down to sort of preferences within the community and what that looks like. This, which shifts it upwards, and instead of overlaying the district on the Black percentage, as I did here, this is the Hispanic percentages, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, this also seems to capture most of that concentration of population and achieves a higher percentage Black majority districts, so that might actually be preferable. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, the gist of the report is that in terms of the first pass test, there are multiple ways to go ahead and create a Black majority district.
Okay.
The one thing that I would add to this, and I don't know if this is something that the commission wants to do or doesn't, and Jeff can kind of talk to some of the advantages and disadvantages of this, and I'm not even sure if it's actually if it's something that you're allowed to do under the city law. But one of the things that I thought that might be something that you want to consider, maybe not entirely, is to consider the current legislators, particularly those from, I believe, the third and the fourth district, to as I believe they're both African American, and the reason why you would check on where they would live is to not disadvantage them or diminish African American representation within the city council by drawing them into the same district. Now, I seem to remember in the wording of the enabling legislation for the commission that might not be might not be something that's permissible. If it's not, I apologize for even suggesting. Jeff can probably elucidate that a little bit better. So in terms of the numbers and the sort of two potential districts that I sort of demonstrated here, are there any questions or comments?
Josh, one thing, Josh, you mentioned the light pink part in the southern end of that first district.
Yes.
That's basically a large section of woods that ran tract, and there's also a big cemetery down there.
Yep.
And there's also cornfields down there, so it's not like
it's not highly populated. But
yeah, nobody lives there, so I wouldn't have a problem including that in the district, because if you put it in somebody else's district, it's just going to be empty space also, and I'd rather not the Hispanic majority in with the black majority, just because we could have the potential of having a Hispanic majority district if we kept it the line where it is in that first map.
There's not a large enough Hispanic population to be able to comprise 50% of the district. So otherwise, I wouldn't have even. I would have shown why you couldn't do that. But the only protected minority population within the city of Syracuse, which could create a majority district, is the black population.
Josh, this is Melody Holmes. I got a question.
Hello, Melody.
Hi, how are you? Yeah. Just listening to the responses that we received from individuals who attended the first forum, what if we get individuals who never, or what if after all the forums, and I know this might not happen, but what if it happens that we're trying to make a black majority district, but no one gives us information on how to draw it? What would be the boundaries of it? How would we go about? Then it's up to us to make that choice without input from the residents.
Yeah.
Am I making sense to you?
Yeah. I mean, yes. If you absent any feedback, you would be tasked with figuring out how to draw that. One recommendation would be that you could share this information with the public and ask for that feedback. You'd be almost certain to get it.
Okay.
In the first sort of round, they're more like listening sessions, and so listen to people's concerns. I mean, I don't know that it's a bad idea to share with the general public in that first round that it is possible to create a black majority district and solicit feedback, particularly from the black community on what they would want that to look like.
Yeah,
or at very least, like things not to do while you're doing that,
Yeah, maybe we should have done that, but we didn't. We just said it was listening. But I agree with you. From this point on, maybe we should always talk about we're looking to build district.
If that's the feedback that you're looking for, then it definitely doesn't hurt to let them know that that's the feedback you're looking for.
Thank you. That's just, okay. Thanks a lot.
No worries. Are there?
Josh,
Sorry, can I just to address Josh's point about the where the current council persons live. It says in the ordinance we're not allowed
Okay,
to consider that.
that is,
No.
that is entirely fair. And if you're not allowed, then you're not allowed. That's, you know, that
There were
kind of is what it
also
is.
a few other relevant points, but I'll wait till I'm called on.
Yes, I'm sure. The reason why I included in the first part is that there is a very relevant reason as to why you would want to do that. And
Right.
And probably should, but you know, the red flag to me was looking at this concentrated population right here and seeing how it's currently split by the current district. That raises all kinds of red flags for me in terms of the results of the election and things like that. Jeff, if you want to speak to that point, please.
Well, just quickly, I went and looked at the city law, and there are a few guidelines that also answer the last question as to how do you draw these districts, the boundaries, and among the criteria, actually 5 through 8, that the geographic integrity of any local neighborhood or local community of interest shall be respected in a manner that minimizes their division to the extent possible. The next one is that district boundaries shall be drawn to encourage geographical compactness. The next one, to the extent practicable, district boundaries shall be drawn using the boundaries of existing election precincts.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
then to the last two, to the extent practicable, district boundaries shall be drawn using geographically identifiable boundaries. And last, the place of residence of any incumbent or potential political candidate shall not be considered in the creation of a plan or any district. So that shoots down any consideration of who the incumbents are. I'll just mention that the districts are really belong to the voters, not to the incumbents, so that if any one incumbent might be displaced, there's certainly going to be another candidate from the community to for that district.
I guess my question was, Jeff, was that this is Melody again. My question was, would it have anything to do with us trying to make a minority district?
Well, there you can create a minority district because, as this map shows us here, the Black community is relatively compact, very
Right.
contiguous. It's a community of interest. If I ever saw one, that you're not connecting dots, you're not drawing a barbell connecting two separate communities with a boulevard.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean,
The Voting Rights Act might not kick in here because we don't know the level of whether there's voting or not. But either way, that would not preclude the drawing. We have 5 districts. So the one that we're looking at right now, just speaking very objectively, this is the first time I'm seeing it, is a very compact district. If you ever had a definition of compact and contiguous, as long as these districts were drawn using existing election districts,
Mm-hmm.
it comports with what the law requires.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clear.
Jeff, the law requires that the districts be drawn by election districts?
Let me go back. I'll tell you exactly. It says here, let's see, yeah, to the extent practicable, the district boundaries shall be drawn using the boundaries of existing election precincts.
Mm-hmm.
And wherever you
Jeff,
see
those
the word,
election precincts were drawn using different census blocks.
I think the map that we're going to draw needs to be based on precincts that in their current 2022 iteration.
There is no, well, they're all going to change after redistricting, Jeff. I mean, I know that's what the law says, but it just doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, we have to do what we
I
can.
know,
If we
I
can
know.
explain it,
I
we
will
can
make a
do
note
it.
then, because I don't know if this is possible using election districts, and that raises a real problem because there might be a Voting Rights Act issue here if you don't do it. I mean, there's probably a way to do it using the election districts, but
Yep. And just sort of a word, in terms of the Voting Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act requires the creation of a minority district if you can draw a district of one racial group, either Black or Hispanic, but right now, not both, where the Black community reaches 50% plus of one district, and that the voters vote cohesively, that they usually support the same candidates. And third, that there is a significantly high level of racially polarized voting where the white voters deny the minority voters the chance to elect the minority preferred candidates. Just an opening question. Have there been elections citywide where Black candidates have carried this particular, have there been elections where Black candidates have won citywide or outside of this area that's highlighted in the map?
Outside, no, but in that area, in that dark pink, yeah. Unless somebody knows something that I don't know, I don't think so.
I mean, you do have a Black member of the state assembly, so the Voting Rights Act might not kick in. But
And don't we have a couple people who were elected at large, so
Right.
does that?
Yeah, I don't think we're having a problem there.
yeah, my sense is that these are really community of interest districts, not Voting Rights Act problem districts.
Right, okay, gotcha.
I had a question in regards to the population of that example of a district right there. Would it, so if we took the total population divided it by 5, this district, is it on the higher end or lower end of that 5? Like, I'm assuming we're in the 5%, but
It
I'm
is
just,
one person over.
oh, so it's like spot on. That's perfect.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Bang
So
on.
awesome. So next question is, I can't zoom in quite high enough, but what is the top of that reach? Can you tell? Is that like maybe like Adams Street possibly?
Right up here.
Yeah.
This
Could be.
is
It's here
I
and
didn't know that. Hang on, I can look.
Oh, it's actually a little higher.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Tennessee.
Harrison.
Okay. Yeah. It is a little higher. Okay. Just curious.
So 1 second, I can.
That's all I got.
So the northern portion of that, the diagonal line there is.
Right, Onondaga?
Yes, West Onondaga, and the northern portion of that looks to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Looks here to be East Genesee, the very tip of East Genesee right here.
Okay. I was
That's
curious. I
Tennessee.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect with that, with where we're Onondaga lines
Yeah,
up
the
there.
only kind
The
of
natural
two
border.
outliers here would be these 2 little census blocks as they fall on the other side of Route 81. And those were included because of a relatively high African American population surrounded by a low one.
Yeah, that's where the hospitals are, is on the other
Right.
side of that. So yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah, and it seems like these 2 census blocks had more to do with the census blocks over here than they did the census blocks.
Correct. Yep. That makes sense.
That's Toomey Abbott.
Also, it made the numbers bang on, so.
Mhm. Oh, that district looks like a W.
Any further questions for Josh specifically because he has to run soon?
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Well, and to give that back. Okay.
All right.
Very good.
That's very informative. I think it gives us a lot to think about, and we can kind of discuss even just some of the language around what we would ask the community to think about, and when we present the map to them. So that's perfect. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you, Josh.
Pleasure. All right, well, take care. Y'all have a pleasant evening. Enjoy your meeting.
Have a good day.
Okay,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
May I bring up a thing that
Go ahead.
May I bring up a thing that sort of follows on from that, and I want to get Jeff's thoughts on this. I was going to bring it up later because it's about what Dustin said at the public hearing. So Dustin Zarni was one of our speakers, and he posted his comments, the sort of written out long version, which is long and sort of interesting. But way at the end, he mentions this issue that we just talked about election districts, whether we have to use the election district lines, except that the ordinance uses different language than he does. The ordinance says something about, if you can, you have to use election precincts. He refers to them as election districts. I don't know which one's correct. He says, you don't have to, don't bother. But please do stick to the ward lines. So use wards if at all possible. Otherwise, it's a headache for him, for whatever that's worth for us. So we're going to have to kind of figure out what the correct legal language is. Are they election precincts, election districts? What are we actually supposed to do legally?
Are those words the same as what a ward would be as well?
No, a ward is something else. So he
Oh.
says, you do not need to adhere to individual election district lines. If you make changes, the Board of Elections will draw new election districts in 2023 to accommodate them. I do ask you keep in mind ward lines, as well as Assembly and Senate lines. So, I mean, this is a request from a random person. We're not bound by this, but the language does seem to be a little slippery.
I'll talk to Justin rather. I'll ask him. I mean, in New York State, we use election districts pretty much throughout, but they're really the same thing as precincts. But because they are different words, I will check. In New York State, the election districts are all drawn within assembly districts. So for the administration of running an election, you'd want to have all of the election districts identifiable by assembly districts. When you go to vote, you'll vote in assembly district 120, election district 3. That's how it's all delineated. But let me check with Dustin about the definitions of precincts versus election districts, and also when they're going to change and what we're currently working with. Because the election districts, I mean, right now, because of the state legislative redistricting, a lot of election districts within assembly districts are changing. So let me get a clarification from him on that.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff, I have a question. I've been splitting my attention reading the ordinance that created us and paying attention to what everybody's saying. One thing that struck me in our public meeting is we have more defined neighborhoods in Syracuse than we do common council districts, where the district actually elects a common councilor. We have 4 at-larges and 5 districts. Do you think we could make that maybe 6 districts and 3 at-larges? I didn't find any language in the ordinance that says we can't, but we've been kind of operating under the presumption that we should.
I have not looked at that, and I'll do that. If you could refer me to the, I guess it's in the city charter that lays out the common council.
I thought that we had looked at this before, and I thought that it said that we had to have 5 districts, but we can. Well, I don't know where that was. I just remember having that conversation, and we were all like, "Oh, okay." So we'll have to find out where that is, because I think we thought it for a reason.
Molly, I remember that as well.
I remember talking about it, but I can't find it anywhere. It would seem like we could get more granular in our districts if we had more elected districts than at-larges, but that might be a charter thing. Like, I guess we should do some research, because we could solve a lot of problems.
I had specifically asked it, I think, to Josh at one point, and he was the one that said that it was in our ordinance. But again, I haven't looked it up to verify that we were to stick to 5.
I'm looking at the ordinance in the background here, so
Well, I think Graham, if we look at chat, Graham is putting what the ordinance says.
Nader said that often. First meetings.
All right, so while we have our researchers researching this topic live and in person, we will we will move along and hopefully get an update soon on that. We'll circle back around. As far as we'll just go back to the agenda. Status update for Jihan, website/social media things. Anything you would like to update us on?
The only thing I'll say is like the recorded public hearing, it's going to be uploaded to the city's YouTube. Someone also asked for it, but I believe he works for the city as well. So that's really it.
Okay.
I have the answer on the size of the Common Council.
Perfect.
It says in the ordinance, in 2021 and each year following the year in which the national census is taken, etc., the commission shall adjust the boundary lines of the 5 single-member districts in conformance with the standards and process set forth in this chapter. So it says shall adjust 5 district lines.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay. All right. Maybe that's something that we leave in our, how to for the next commission, that, the ordinance be maybe adjusted when they go to redo this. Because it would be nice to have options for more districts. Okay. Anything?
Yeah, I'm looking at that, and just playing devil's advocate here. The way I read it, it's like the commission shall adjust the boundary lines of the 5 single-member districts. Does it say anything past that it has to be 5 districts, or can we adjust it as we see fit?
I think we're getting hung up on 5
Yeah,
districts.
I look at the plain
Okay.
meaning of it. It says you shall draw 5 districts, period.
And like I said before, Nader was very clear about that.
Yeah.
At the beginning, he said it has to be 5 districts. And that only a change in the ordinance, which will be done by the city, change that.
Right.
Okay. So, with that knowledge in mind, maybe we'll save the. Okay, I'll give John. Can you just give us site details for PSLA Fowler so we can move on to that and start talking about our hearing? It's the next agenda point.
Sure. Just real quick, we're not going to be going in the main entrance at Fowler High School. On Magnolia Street, about halfway down the building, there's a set of doors, and above it, it says event entrance. That's the closest entrance to get to the auditorium. My wife's going to take a picture of it. I'll send out a text later this week, just so you know. You can park on Magnolia. It's also kind of adjacent to the lot in front. And you just walk down the side of the building, but that's the easiest place to get in to and out of the auditorium. We're also going to have, we're going to be in the auditorium. It's rigged for sound and lights. We're going to have a single podium with a microphone and a laptop on it. And anyone in the public speaking is going to come up to the podium and speak into the microphone. That way Jeff and Gerald and Josh can hear them, and anybody logged in from the public. There's a big screen that comes down from the stage. We're going to be sitting down in the orchestra pit, which is right adjacent to the chairs. We're going to have tables set up. It'll look a lot more formal than the cafeteria setup. So we're on top of it, and I wanted to let you know that that's where we're going to be next Saturday.
Should we be there half hour ahead like we were this time? So 6:30?
Yes, absolutely.
This, I have it down as this Saturday. Do I have the wrong date again?
It is this Saturday. Okay.
Do we need
All
a
right, so
quorum? Do we need 9 members?
Yes, we would definitely need 9 members. Is everyone on this call planning to be at that?
I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not able
Bruce,
to.
no.
I'm there.
This is the one I'm missing.
All right, and so no, all right, no Bruce, no Larry,
Oh, Bob.
no Bob. And the people who are raising their hands, you guys are going to be present?
Correct.
Okay. So I have Bruce, Larry, and Bob is absent. I feel like I heard one more female voice saying no.
Brenda.
Brenda, no Brenda. Okay.
I just put in the chat,
Okay.
I actually have to go out of town again this weekend for work, but if the train is not late, I'll be there.
Okay. So hopefully / maybe that means that all of us, all the remaining of us, need to be present so that we have the 9.
Being online, doesn't that count? Like if let's say someone catches COVID, right? and we log in on the WebEx, that should count, right?
I think so.
Yeah. All right.
I would count it.
I can, then if that's the case, then if I'm not there, I can definitely log in with my stuff.
Cool. Okay.
You can be on the go on your phone.
Yes, I'm laughing.
All right. Okay. That sounds great. All right, so those are for the details. Now we get into the fun stuff of just debriefing our first meeting and kind of talking about what went well, what we need to work on. There is a lot of us, and I think everyone has a lot of ideas. And so I'm going to ask that we do this in a really structured way and stick to one positive, one area of growth. And at the end, we will circle back around if there are things that weren't said and you want to add, we certainly can. You don't have to come up with new things every round. If you just want to like emphasize and highlight something that was already said, that can count as your one, certainly. But I don't want to get into like a slippery slope of, you know, talking about one thing and then we, no one else gets, we kind of go forth. So Jason and Melody, I see both of you have hands. So, Jason?
My positive is that lady that was running around with the microphone, she was doing God's work. I don't know who she was, but God bless her. She was fantastic. We got to get her on payroll somehow. But okay, so that was our positive. Negative, I would just say more of like an improvement, which I think will go on when we go to Fowler next week or on Saturday, is just the getting a specific spot for where the speaker should stand, as opposed to us chasing them. They can then just go to that dedicated spot, and I think would make it a lot easier. That's all I got to say about that.
Perfect. Okay, Melody, did you have a
I got a
question about
couple
this
things.
process or you wanted to say?
Well, a positive was that I want to give shout outs to John's wife. Again, I know this is a repeat and you said don't do it, but I'm going to tell you, she was running around and it was literally the fact that she did that was just, and people at my table were like, look at her go. And it was like, because she was just, it was difficult. But I understand because I talked to her later, and fall is going to be different. There will be dedicated spots, so that's going to be a great thing. Um, and I'm going to add an addendum to that. Even though ITC is a nice location, general speaking, all that stuff, I don't really suggest us using it again. The feedback, I heard from every single speaker on the feedback that was just horrendous, and how it stopped their flow because they weren't able to keep speaking. And even me, I put it down and I said, is the feedback really bad? And so people were, no, you're okay, but it wasn't. I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't good. Not anybody's fault. It's just the way the building is set up. Okay, so we just might not want to use that building. Just saying, unless we find another way to get around that. Okay, the very, very positive, well, I said that. The other thing is what I'd like to suggest is when the commissioners introduce themselves, not just your name, but also the district that you are in. Okay, that would be very, very helpful because as we do this more often, and the more we do this, it would be nice if people knew which district you represented, or that you were in on. And so there may be more, but that's where I am right now. Okay, thank you.
Melody. Maritza, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, one of the things I took away from a lot of the comments that people had made, that they were all looking for some common identification, even though you're in different districts and each neighborhood has its own flair, that they were still looking for that commonality. So that's one thing that struck me.
More and more likely that we're.
I'm sorry?
I think it was a background noise.
Oh, okay. And then the other thing I think it has been addressed before, I mean, they want answers. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of questions. So I think we need to make that extremely clear at the beginning. I know that Melody did do that, but I think throughout the conversation, we need to let them know that this is a fact-finding, listening. We may be able to answer some questions, but we really have nothing to give them for them to ask questions, so to speak. So that was just my one negative.
Okay. Tony? Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you. The moderation of the meeting by Melody, I thought was excellent. So kudos to you, Melody. And this was already said, but I'll say it again. The feedback from the mic was obviously problematic.
Thank you. Is next. Larry, go ahead, Larry.
My positive and negatives were already taken, but I'll add that I like
highlight them. That's okay.
I like the idea of. So I'll go to another one. I like the idea of not limiting it to 3 minutes, but I don't like the idea of having it unlimited, because somebody could start ranting and it's impolite to then cut them off. I think we should think about something like 5 minutes and then give some people at the end a chance to speak a second time like we did. I thought that was good.
Perfect.
And lastly, I would disagree that we should say what district we're from, because we represent the whole city on this commission, not our own district.
Yeah, I agree with Larry on that one.
Okay. Who would like to go next? Colleen, go ahead.
I just had more of a question. Are we certain that the feedback issue was specifically because of the building and not something that we need to work out with the WebEx, with this type of setup again anywhere else?
Good point.
I didn't know if Melody had more intel on it being specifically that building, but just a thought.
I think the feedback is because we're using the laptops, like we're using 2 laptops.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
because I know that when I'm on Zoom and I'm on my phone and my laptop, I'll get feedback. So I'm not sure about that. I mean, I don't know that we have to hear ourselves. So when the sound was turned off and people on the internet could hear us, we didn't have the feedback.
But then the people in the room forget to use the microphone because they don't think about the folks on the internet. We have to keep reminding.
Right. So we just have to make sure they use the microphone and just turn off. Just because they can't hear themselves. You know, it's kind of like when people take pictures and they don't think the picture is being taken because there's no flash.
Yeah, I think if we just request that people speak up as much as they can, I think where we were sitting on our side of the room, there was a really loud radiator behind us, so it was making it hard to hear without the microphone, and then it was hard to hear with the microphone. So,
Right. Okay. So before we dive too much into any one topic, I want to make sure everyone has a chance to chat. Colleen, did you want to do a positive and a negative, or positive and an area of growth?
I thought the positive that stood out to me most was that Melody did a great job, I think, moderating. Not that she has to do it every time, but that was a great first example, I think, for us all to follow. And then I also definitely agree that just having a dedicated speaker standing spot so the computer doesn't have to move makes a lot of sense.
Jeff, it looks like your hand is up.
Yeah, Jerry, Benjamin, and I had a few general comments that I shared with Jihan and the email address a little while ago, but I'll just summarize them. Participation was low, but we did have a few good quality evidence-based inputs about maps and communities of interest, and I think this is precisely why we hold hearings, and that as maps become more focused and we have proposals to look at, we'll see much more increased, we should see much more increased activity. When speakers go off point, it's often not their fault because they are there to speak and don't really know otherwise, but it's up to whoever is chairing the meeting to bring them back, cite the time limits, the number of other speakers who are coming in. I think the hearing was very well handled, given the small number of people, and also the flexibility for time limits that with so few speakers, there's no real need to enforce a time limit, but we don't want to also let someone go on and on. So flexibility and common sense should prevail. And then on questions and answers, I thought a very good explanation was given about the process and the stage we are currently in. So we should try to inform attendees that these hearings are for hearing by and not from commissioners, but to hear from the public, and that this is the general practice in government to listen first, and that we can keep a list of questions, and if there's time afterwards, we could limit to a few questions or offer other sources of answers. And on the logistics, I think we've discussed that. From my own experience, as a rule, large cafeterias, foyers, and auditoriums often have the poorest acoustics. So whenever you do a test of a place, just be wary, mindful that the higher the ceiling, the bigger the room, the harder it might be to hear.
Okay. Ram?
Sure. Just in the interest of adding one positive that hasn't been mentioned yet, I thought it was very cool that some media showed up. There was a little bit of media coverage. It was encouraging. My other one sort of goes along from what Jeff was just saying, that I thought Melody's spiel at the beginning was great, but it was maybe a little bit abstract, and I don't know whether it was easy for folks in the room to take in all at once. I thought maybe a little more practicalities in that sort of opening chat where you say, this is the first round, and then we're going to bring maps back in a second round, just so that it sets the expectations for folks in the room a little more.
Yeah, one thing I've learned over the years, don't ever assume anyone else knows anything. So with the public, they're talk to them as if they don't really even know what redistricting is. Not to speak poorly of anybody, but treat them with kid gloves. That this really is probably new for them, a new concept, a new process. And they might not really be quite sure what they're doing there, but they're there for a reason. So bring out the best of what they have to offer.
Okay, Jeff, I really do appreciate. First of all, I have to say that that was sent to me by Jihan via Jeff, so I really appreciate it. And when I looked at it, I was like, "Oh, okay." Because I'm a teacher. I was looking at it in a sense of how can I make this simpler? How can I make this simpler? And so I decided to just add some things, but also to keep it exactly how it was sent to me, except for a few additions. But I'm just going to say that I have to go with Graham, and the simpler, the better. And I'm also with you, Jeff. People don't assume people even know what the word redistricting means because it has to be broken down. And that's something I said, do I do this or do I just let it go? But I said, okay, first group, first time, just let's go with it. The other thing that I would just have to add is that I thought that it would have been nice to be able, and I don't know if this is possible, so you guys work with me, to get questions from the people on the internet. Was that, because I think I was told that that wasn't happening or that wasn't possible. Is that true?
No one had questions.
There wasn't anyone
What's
on.
possible? It could have been done. Is that what I'm?
Yes, it could have been
set up
done,
to be done.
but
okay,
right, there was no one there to speak.
right, and that's another thing with no one there to speak. Maybe we can look at looking at ways to that. I'm just going to go back to what Jeff said, and it's really true that people may not be fully aware of what redistricting is. They have passionate views and passionate ideas on what's going on in their district, and they wanted to get that out. Not a problem. We had time to do that. So, but the next time and the next time and the next time, we're not going to have time to do that. I hope that there'll be a broader number of people out so that we can move it along and move it along well. And there is something else, and then I have to go, but I have to remember what it was. It's not smart as I used to be. My memory. But it'll come back to me. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Bruce, I saw your hand go up first.
Yeah, just a second, the idea of the memory. Yeah, that hit home. I guess these are maybe two positives. The first was that even though the crowd wasn't much of a crowd, I thought they were informed and had passion, and I think that's and they knew this was important, I guess, in terms of the long-term policy of the city government. And the second positive is to Graham. I thought his explanation of and it might have been said before, but it needs to be said again. His explanation of where this is in the process and what the process means in terms of further input farther down the line is important. I think it diffuses their sense of powerlessness because they're not getting all that they want or they don't understand or and this gives them a second shot at it. So I think that's thank you, Graham. That's what I want to say.
That's a very good point, Bruce. Thank you very much. This is the last thing I remember. Could there be an individual who definitely answers questions about process? That is that individual. That is that commissioner's job to answer questions about process and how this one goes, because that question I feel is going to come up again and again and again. And I think that we ought to all come across that we're all knowledgeable, that it's not just the moderator or it's not just one or two people, that we're all knowledgeable. And so if maybe the next group, this person answers questions about the process, and at the next time, et cetera, just a thought. That's just a thought. And I have to go, guys, because I have another Zoom, but I just want to thank you for allowing me to be the guinea pig for the first. I appreciated it, and I think that it's onward and upward. We're going to do nothing but great things. Okay, so I'll see you Saturday. Oh, sorry.
Okay, Melody, just quickly, are you wanting to also moderate on Saturday, or should
Oh,
we
sure,
pick
I'll be
someone
willing
else and
to
have
do
that?
that. I'm better now.
Okay. Okay. All right. So just so before we lose you and everything, I want to have that squared away. Thank you very much, Melody.
Thank you. Have a great evening, guys. All right. Bye-bye.
Maritza, I see your hand up again.
Yeah.
I had my Molly, I had my hand up.
I'm sorry.
This is
Brenda?
Babette. I've had my hand up for,
Go.
maybe.
Go.
I'll go after Maritza, that's fine. Hey, Maritza, I'll go after Maritza.
Oh, okay. So my question is, because we're going to be at Fowler, and I put this on the chat room, have any arrangements been made for interpretation at PSLA?
Jihan, would you like to speak to this?
The city, so like by interpretation first, do you mean like sign language or translation services?
Translations written, interpretation is spoken. So it would be interpretation services to have somebody, if, for example, a Hispanic person shows up, somebody needs to help her translate into English and then translate back to Spanish so that she gets her answer, he or she. So that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, so for translation, they did give us an outside company that we can hire. So we didn't really go with them, but that's all we have. They haven't provided anything else regarding that translation services.
The Spanish Action League actually has an interpretation and translation service. Maybe we can approach them to provide someone just to be on hand in case someone needs help.
Okay, I can reach out to them.
That's a good idea, Maritza. Since you have that contact and it seems like you were in the know about that, can I ask you to take that on?
Okay.
Thank you. Perfect. Babette, let's circle over to you.
Yeah, I was thinking, so I was listening to some of the things that didn't go quite as well at IT Central, and I'm thinking, we did do an FAQ. So we can condense that down to maybe a front and a back, because if somebody comes in late and if instructions are given at the beginning of the meeting and they miss that because they come in late, they have the sheet of paper that answers all these questions. That's why we did them. So like, this is what redistricting is. This is why it happens every 10 years. I mean, we can do that and just have that as a handout, do it in black and white, and people can just grab it when they come in.
That's a great idea. It's something also we could put on the projector. I think at one time we had talked about having like other projectors and things, so we could certainly consider that. Who have we not heard from before we start diving into the specifics on some of these? Bob, can we get some of your insight, Bob?
Well, the positive was I agree that our moderator did a great job. I thought she was excellent. The problem with the speakers and the echoing, they were working very hard to remedy that, and they did when they turned the speakers off. It was just because of the location and style of the building. So I think those who were working to make that happen did an excellent job overall. It didn't work as well as maybe could have. The speakers, I thought there was a couple that two in particular that I thought were right on. They did exactly what I expected to have happen. There was a couple others that were talking about non-city redistricting. So I don't know, that wasn't the place to hear that, but I did hear some good things, and I learned, I'm not saying, going to say a lot, but it wasn't what I expected. I expected to hear more people who had a real problem, other than the very first speaker about the Washington Square. He's the only one that really brought up a specific, these district lines are dividing our neighborhood. And I thought that the whole idea behind this whole project was that there was a problem with the existing lines, and somehow there was people and voters who were disenfranchised because the district, I didn't hear that other than the one person. So that's it.
Thank you, Bob. Brenda, how about you?
Well, I'm kind of hard pressed to say anything different than what has already been said. I mean, again, Molly was excellent. Melody was excellent, excuse me. And again, I agree that a centralized place for a speaker would be better. All right. The other thing is that, and I had been thinking about this, and I'm glad that Maritza brought it up because I would anticipate at some point you will have people who would be speaking in Spanish, all right? And also not everybody that speaks Spanish is able to read Spanish, all right? So I like the idea of preparing for not only translation for Spanish, but also for interpretation, sign language. American Sign Language is also something that might pop up in the future. And just to think about going forward, be good to kind of have that as a possibility and be prepared for it. That would be my take on that. But I think overall, for the first time, I think things went okay.
Maritza? Oh, I think you're on mute, Maritza.
Hello. Just to tag on to what Brenda said, as we go through each quadrant, like, for example, like when we go to Henninger, you know, the north side has a lot of refugee agencies, and there may be people who will be coming up, and I think we might need to touch base some of those agencies to let them know about the meetings so that they can let their constituents know about the meetings, just to kind of spread the word out, because I think that that's how we'll increase our audiences in certain segments. The North Side's very involved in their community, and I think they would be very interested in going up to Henninger and having their voices heard.
I agree.
Charles?
Well, my only space for growth, I think, is like I voiced. I'm just kind of a little disappointed that less people showed up. So I'm hoping that that's just one of those things that is a momentum thing. I suspect, regardless of how the participation is for the next two, I'm sure people will feel the pressure of the last two trying to get it in to try to voice their opinions.
Want to give a positive, Charles?
Oh, I'm going to say the same thing everybody else did. The moderator was wonderful.
Okay. All right, John, what about you?
There we go. Sorry. I was just typing. Let me think here. I think the meeting went well. I wasn't expecting a huge turnout. And the people that came were the ones I was expecting. A lot of those people are activists and they have things to say. And I think they all made great points, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to listen to them. Dion put out today some videos on our social media of people speaking at our meetings, and I hope that encourages people to say, okay, I'm now comfortable to go to this meeting and say what's really been bugging me about this. Even if it has nothing to do with us, at least they're getting out and getting active, and we can inform them that we're only dealing with city redistricting. If they want to talk about county or state or national or whatever, it doesn't matter. The whole point of this exercise is to create awareness in the community. So I think by continuing to get our message out that we're doing this is gonna like Jeff said, it's going to have a snowball effect. We're going to have more and more people become interested in this as we go along. And all the technical issues, we're working on it. The reason for the feedback was because one of the 4 laptops we were using at that meeting wasn't muted, and we didn't discover that till the meeting was over. So now we know what the issue was with that. Hopefully it'll be better. And we got 4 more public meetings in this round and then 5 more to do after. And I think by the end of this, we're going to have probably 100 people in the room, hopefully. So that's my take.
Thank you. Did everyone go? Was there anyone that we missed? I don't think so.
I think we missed you.
Yes, thank you. My positive, I think Melody did a great job, but also I was just happy that we were all together in the same space. It felt like real, like we were like doing the thing. I was happy to get started in this very kind of like official way. So it was just like a nice feeling. The area for growth, I'm still gonna beat on this same drum that I was on before. A commenter had mentioned, I don't know what you want from us. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. And so I think that kind of giving a prompt of some sort, like, just like some kind of question or something on the projector or a piece of paper, like about like their neighborhood, what about your district, like is good and don't change it or needs to be changed. I'm not really sure, but I think it would be helpful. So also maybe would keep them focused on redistricting and not guns and things. I don't so I thought that would be a helpful thing that maybe we should look at. So that's all I had. Okay. So
Can I
a
ask
lot
a
of
really
this
dumb basic question?
Yes.
I looked through all the pieces of paper I have and I couldn't find anything that gave an end time for these. We seemed to just go an hour. Is that how long it's officially, or?
The building permit requests. The first meeting was an hour, but all the others I think are for an hour and a half. So an hour ahead of time, to set up, and then an hour and a half after. So the next meeting would be end at 8:30. Could end at 8:30.
Okay, thanks.
Just
question.
A quick reply to Molly. I think to give them prompts is important. It gives them an idea of why there are public meetings and what we hope to get from them. It might be in the form of the information we get, specific questions they could ask, concerns, the criteria that we ought to consider. But otherwise, it's a void, as is the whole redistricting process. And so the idea of giving them prompts to recognize what we're after is really useful. Good idea.
Tony?
I think the front and back sheet thing that Babette proposed is class. I think that would be a really helpful tool to have available for folks as they come in. I mean, I know, Jeff, you said that you don't want us to tell them what to ask, or to say, might be a helpful tool for them to just have a basic understanding about what this process is. And also allow them to then think of questions that they might have, comments that they might want to make relative to that.
This is Babette. I think it's 3, when we worked on it, I think it's like we got up to 3 pages. I can condense it down and I can reach out to Olive over at Interfaith Works to see if we can get somebody to also do some other translation, like Bhutanese or something like that for the Northside meeting and get back to Jihan later this week.
Okay, so Babette, you'll work on translating services for our Northside meeting, and Maritza, you're going to work on the it for our upcoming meeting at Fowler.
Correct.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Tony, is your hand still up,
Yeah,
or
sorry.
is it a new? Okay. Okay. Colleen, I saw your hand at one point.
I'm sorry, did you say me?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just thinking actually, like, I really like the idea of having like the handout with the background information and maybe the prompts on there. And then if we still wanted to put something on the projector, I didn't know if it made sense to maybe show the existing districts as they are kind of projected on the screen to give people something to talk to, be like, this is what I'm talking about. This was what doesn't make sense, this part right here. But make sure, I guess we'd have to be clear that that's the existing and not the proposed, and it's just there for reference and whatnot, but just a thought.
Okay. So, Babette, you said that you will work on that FAQ little half sheet thing, and you could maybe get it to Jihan before our meeting, so she could get it all printed. Babette. We will circle back around with Babette. Okay. So I think most of the things that everyone kind of touched on, we have the translator stuff that we're working on. Also, I think everyone talked about having a designated spot, which is already built in, we have. But even when we go to other locations, I think we just like need to make one where like the mic is stationary, the computer is stationary. We were so lucky to have Robin. It was wonderful. But I wish you could just like chill and hang out and like be a part of it and not run around for us. So that would be great. And then Charles, yes, Dustin did give us his map. Jackie has like the big maps that he had in the meeting, but the digital copies are in the drive that he also sent us, so you can get a closer look at those as well.
His first map was our existing district, wasn't it?
You kind of just moved around the line so it fit the population. It's like north side's too much and the west side's not enough. So he just kind of
no. I'm talking about the original map. The original map that he showed was our original map that we have. And I was just thinking, instead of projecting it, we could always just tape it on the wall and people can look at it themselves when they come in.
That's true. We could have we can reach out to Jackie and make sure that she brings that to the meeting. That's wise, since we already have that resource with that. And we should have the feedback issue taken care of. Melody had made a suggestion about like introducing ourselves in our districts, and there was some kind of talk about that. So I think it'd be wise maybe to kind of discuss if we like what are the pros and the cons of saying our district in addition to our name.
I guess I kind of agree that it's not really relevant, and doesn't it say it on our name tags if anybody is really curious to know, or placards? But I'm not opposed to saying it either, I guess.
I thought Larry put it very well, that it might give someone the impression that we're here representing our district, and we're really not supposed to be, in my interpretation.
Okay. So does it sound fair to just continue to say our names and that's it? Tony?
A pro would be that if you're at a meeting and it's not your particular district, folks see that you are from, or that you say you're from their particular district. It gives them some comfort in that manner. But I think generally speaking, I'm sort of wary that we're representing the entirety of the city, not our districts. And so I think that all being said, I think it would be better if we just didn't say that.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like we're cool just saying our name.
That's all you need.
I would also say similarly, the people that come aren't necessarily from the district where the school is.
Right. Okay.
Molly, I'm sorry, I stepped away. Somebody was knocking on my door, but John just chatted me, so I see what you were. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, it's a-
So you'll be able to get that to Jihan this week?
Yeah, I'll edit, I'm gonna actually, I'll work on it as soon as we hang up, and that way you'll have the one pager, and then I'll reach out to Olive, who's Director of Operations at Interfaith. I'll text her, do that now while we're talking, and then we'll follow up with her tomorrow.
Okay. That sounds great. And then before, is there anything else that we should dig into concerning our next meetings? We got language, audio is being taken care of.
I have tons of water left over. And I think we had tons of snacks left over, so we're good. We're good there for all that stuff.
Right, it's all just the snacks are just sitting in my car, so I will bring them into the auditorium when I come.
I figured I would get 2 boxes of Joes. That would be more than enough.
Right, I'm very curious to see how many people we'll have at a 7 o'clock meeting on Saturday. I feel like we set these times and dates, and it was like based on the doodle poll, and so now I'm like, now that we're there, I will be very interested to see what it looks like. So make one of them decaf, Tony. We'll see. But yeah, definitely switch down to those smaller boxes, I think is probably best. Okay. Anything else? We did want to revisit this idea of if we want to return to in-person meetings in City Hall. Obviously, we'd still have a WebEx component because we need Jeff and Jerry and Josh and Marissa to be able to join us. So there will still be that. And I suppose we could discuss if, commissioners can, if it counts for a quorum and all that to be on, but I'm wondering where everyone stands as far as going back to in-person.
I have a comment in regards to that.
Sure.
I think after our next 4 public meetings, when we start doing the down and dirty, I guess we'll call it, with creating our maps, doing it in person would be more helpful. We can get more done. So we can get through this next springtime, I guess. And then hopefully after that 5th meeting, we can start getting together, and then we can literally put our heads together.
Jeff? Hold on, Jeff, you're on mute.
You ought to check with the city in terms of the state policy. The governor's executive order expires in mid-April. And my understanding, and I could be wrong, and I've got to check on this, is that hybrid meetings are possible as long as for the in-public part, the public has access to see to be at the meeting, which means that some people could be online and some in person. But check to see what the city is doing, just so that you're uniform.
We can look into that. If the common council has gone back to in-person or what they're doing.
Yeah, if you can share with me what the city is doing, I'd appreciate that.
Mike, some of that change, if the numbers change in Onondaga County, as I've been reading and hearing.
Is that a question for me?
It's a question for Molly, more likely. I mean, I like in person. I'm not a Zoomer, but it is a moving target, this condition we're under. That's all I'm saying. The numbers may change.
Yeah. I think that we should definitely just kind of follow the numbers of
Be
what's
aware,
happening here,
that's all.
but right. So finding out what the city is doing, if they are in person right now, and definitely what that executive order states as far as like when WebEx is not really an option anymore. We've already been through this once before where it was allowed, but then it wasn't. So hopefully we can just kind of look at that and get some guidance.
This is Babette. So the state just repealed the law that allowed people to do that because I'm on the OCPL board and we will be meeting in person in April.
Okay.
Unless, of course, the numbers go up.
Right. Okay. So it's safe to say that at least by April we will, which is like a couple weeks. So at least by April we will need to start meeting in person in order to comply with the law.
I'm not sure what the law says regarding what CDC would say that Onondaga County isn't a fit place to be meeting inside at the present time because the numbers went up significantly. We got out of the green zone.
Yeah, this could be a legal issue for the governor and the legislature, depending on the CDC is obviously one thing. If the state policy expires without the legislature or governor extending it, then I think we need to go to a hybrid situation where there's an in-person meeting, but some people might be allowed to view remotely.
Right. So I guess we won't vote on it just yet until we get information. It sounds like we need some more information before we vote. Does that sound about right? Okay. All right, so we will table voting for now. So this Saturday, 6:30 at Fowler, entrance on Magnolia. Any questions, concerns, comments? No.
Oh, good.
Would anyone like to adjourn? Maritza first, Graham second. It's the only thing we regularly vote on. That's great. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. I will see most of you on Saturday, and we will have our meeting, another working meeting. Are we going to go the 28th then? Yes. Yeah, I think we're at that weekly point. Okay. See everyone Saturday.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye. You too.